Hey, what's up, everybody? It is the Ant-Man channel. Welcome. It is Friday, the 30th of January, 2015, and I'm your host, Ant-Man. Sometimes I'm goofy. But anyways, I got a article in front of me from the christianpost.com, and it is by Nap Nasworth, a Christian Post reporter. This was published yesterday about 7:52 p.m. Or a.m., excuse me. So I was saving it for a special occasion, and here we go. Sociologist, Christianophobia, anti-Christian hostility infects powerful elite subculture. This is an interview, and I will also put the link. It's quite a lengthy article, so I will not be ranting. I will just read through it as fast as I can. People participated in the 19th annual Way of the Cross over the Brooklyn Bridge ceremony in New York City, April 18, 2014. The ceremony, hosted nearly on the Christian holy day of Good Friday, includes walking from St. James Cathedral over the Brooklyn Bridge to St. Peter's Church in Manhattan. The event attracts approximately 2,000 people each year. Pretty good number. A small but elite group of Americans demonstrate signs of anti-Christian hostility. Sociologists David Williamson and George Yancey claim in their new book, So Many Christians, So Few Lions. Is there Christianophobia in the United States? I mean, if you're new to my channel, you would be surprised how long I've been covering this, man. In an email interview with the Christian Post, Yancey, professor of sociology at the University of North Texas, explained that Christians are fortunate in one sense, because those with anti-Christian hostility are small in number. But in another sense, they should be concerned because those with Christianophobia tend to be powerful elites with influence in certain important areas, such as higher education. Higher education. The only thing they're high on is crack. But anyways, the data for their research comes from a large national survey, the American National Election Survey, and interviews they conducted with members of liberal advocacy organizations. The title of the book is a reference to how some Christians were put to death during the Roman Empire, and the phrase can be found on bumper stickers. Several of the interviewees used some variant of the "So Few Lions" theme when describing their attitudes toward Christians. Yeah, if you've ever seen this video, go look it up on YouTube real quick. It's Kent Hovind's son, Eric Hovind. He gets on top of an atheist monument, right? They want to take down the Ten Commandment monuments, but they put up their own monuments, their own religious symbols, but, shut up, Christian. But anyway, he gets up on this atheist monument and starts preaching the gospel. And then you actually see these sick, depraved lunatics that are standing around that call themselves atheists. They're saying, "Get the lions! Release the lions!" You know what? Only a sick maniac would want people killed for what they believe. Seriously. Just even joking around about that, you're not joking. Whatever comes out of your mouth is coming from the heart. So you can't fool a Christian because we know what's really in your heart. We know that you're not joking around. You guys are sick, man. You guys are depraved, poor sinners, man. And we want to just get you to know Christ, and He can give you a new heart. He can make you a new person, for sure. Yancey added that he and Williamson, associate professor of sociology at the University of North Texas, hope their book will make those who are hostile toward Christians more aware of their own biases so that they can correct them. Here is a transcript of that interview. CP, why did you and co-author David Williamson want to research and write about anti-Christian hostility? This is Yancey talking. There is a lot of literature on hostility toward many different groups, but just about none on hostility toward Christians. Yet when we collected quantitative data from cultural progressive activists, we quickly saw some of the unnecessary vitriol and fears within many of our respondents. We also saw the social status of those who exhibited this hatred, and many of them would be in positions that allowed them to at least subtly act on their anger and fears. That motivated us to take a more systematic look at Christianophobia and speculate on how this phenomenon influences certain social aspects in the United States. Another aspect that drove me to work on this project was that while I consistently saw evidence of Christianophobia in other areas of my life and in our society, unlike other types of intolerances, those who exhibited Christianophobia do not tend to think that they are intolerant because they're given to a reprobate mind and they don't even see their own hypocrisy. They're blind. That's what the Bible says, by the way. The Word of God, which is inerrant and infallible and sufficient and inspired, by the way. They don't see their own intolerance. Usually those who do not like blacks or Muslims admit that they are intolerant but simply try to justify their intolerance. Those with Christianophobia tend to deny that they are intolerant, but rather that they are fairly interpreting social reality. Envisioning themselves as fair and free of intolerance allows them to blame those they detest rather than recognize how their emotions have distorted their intellectual judgments. By documenting just how hateful some of the attitudes are toward Christians and who tends to have such hateful attitudes, I hope to bring Christianophobia into the light so that we, as a society, can discuss this social problem and how we might address bigotry in all of its myriad forms. If you haven't noticed, even with the Muslims, especially with the atheists, they love to cry. I'm sorry, but I have to point that out. Capital punishment to them should be if you hurt my feelings, if you offend me. That is the new tolerance. You're not allowed to tell me something that hurts my feelings. So if you tell me I'm a sinner and that I'm flawed, then I have the right to get offended, and I have the right to hate you. That's the new tolerance. You cannot interpret the Constitution correctly if you don't understand what the founding fathers wrote it for, because man needs to be restrained. It's really amazing that I have to point that out. It's really amazing because we live in an era where everybody's about self-esteem. Even the churches try to sell self-esteem by psychology and all this stuff. It's gross. Get real. If you love people, don't lie to them. Don't talk down to them like they're stupid. We're made in the image of God to be intellectual, to be very smart. So don't do that. I know that that's what the world tries to tell you is the way to approach things nowadays, but you're not doing anybody any good by talking down to them and trying to water things down for them. You're not doing anyone any favors. Christian Post, you found that there is a subset of progressives or liberals that have animosity toward Christians or Christianophobia. According to them, what is wrong with Christians? Yancey, in the minds of many of the respondents, Christians are ignorant, intolerant, and stupid individuals who are unable to think for themselves. It's hilarious. The general image they have of Christians is that they are a backward, non-critical thinking, childlike people who do not like science and want to interfere with the lives of everyone else. If anyone ever said that to me to my face, man, you're looking for a fight. I'm sorry, but the atheist is such a little jellyfish. He will hide behind his computer and talk all the crap he wants. I love how atheists approach you too. What's up, stupid Christian? And then you try to like say, hey man, you believe in evolution, so who's stupid now? And they'll be like, oh, I thought you were a Christian. I thought, you know what? And it's like, where did you get the misconception that a Christian's some sort of mamby-pamby wuss that has to be all nice and all the time? It's not true. It's a misconception. You want to believe that in your mind so that you can have an excuse to cop out and act like a little chump and whatnot. But we're not called to be chumps, and we're not called to be like defenseless. Oh, you know what I mean? No, we're not. We're supposed to have an answer ready for anyone who has a question about the hope that is in us. It's apologetically. So we don't apologize for nothing. But anyways, let me get back into this. But even worse, they see ordinary Christians as having been manipulated by evil Christian leaders and will vote in whatever way those leaders want. They believe that those leaders are trying to set up a theocracy to force everybody to accept their Christian beliefs. So for some with Christianophobia, this is a struggle for our society and our ability to move toward a progressive society. Christians are often seen as the great evil force that blocks our society from achieving this progressive paradise. So gross. CP, demographically, you found that Christianophobes are mostly white, wealthy, well-educated, and non-religious. And the fact that this is mostly an elite group, good or bad for Christians, is the fact that this is mostly an elite group, good or bad for Christians. In other words, given a choice, would you rather be hated by elites or non-elites? Yancey, obviously, all things being equal, an elite individual can do more damage to a person than a non-elite individual. But this does not mean that Christians have it worse than all other groups. We also have to factor in the number of people with Christianophobia. For example, more people have hostility toward atheists than toward Christians, but those individuals do not tend to be white or highly educated. Thus, they do not have the level of per capita power of those who do not like Christians. So in a group, worse off is if more people do not like them, or if those who do not like them have a lot of social power, but there are fewer of them. So again, is a group worse off if more people do not like them, or if those who do not like them have a lot of social power, but there are fewer of them? It's a question. Context matters to answer such a question. If you want to get elected to political office, then atheists are at a disadvantage, since more people do not like them. But if you want to get a higher education, then you will run into a lot more people with power who hate Christians than who hate atheists. The atheist is miserable. That's why nobody likes you guys, because you guys are so mean. You guys are not nice people, man. Nobody likes that. I see that you guys think you're smart, but that's no reason to talk down and badly about people. As a Christian, I believe I'm a smart person, but I don't use that as a way to beat up people, man. That's a disgraceful thing. I want people to get saved. So for the sake of that, I'm going to be meek and humble. So anyway, Christian Post, can your findings help us understand the recent trend of intolerant liberalism, such as the examples the Christian Post noted, 33 examples of intolerant liberalism in 2014? Yancey, that is an interesting list, and to be fair, some of the examples are just political gamesmanship that you see from both Republicans and Democrats, such as the disinviting of Charles Murray. I am not even sure if Murray is a Christian. There are other examples where it is less clear whether it is Christianophobia or something else, much like it is often hard for myself as an African American to know when a person is acting due to racism or some other motivation. I think of the conflict over religious freedom laws in this way. But there are some that I think are hard to defend, such as the policies at California colleges which have led to the removal of Christian groups. I have written about such policies and still fail to hear a solid reason why we should give an atheist the right to be the president of a Christian group. The only viable reason I could think is because this rule allows college administrators to express some degree of latent Christianophobia with a fiction of promoting equality. Ultimately, here is where the research that David and I conducted may be of service. We documented that some level of Christianophobia is present among certain powerful subcultures in our society. This helps us understand some actions in our society. People do not like to admit that they are biased or bigoted, but often those affinities come out in other ways because of the attention rightly paid to bigotry based on race, sexual preference, sex, and even minority religion status. There is social pressure on those who take action that may harm those groups to engage in introspection to make sure they are not being unfair. I have seen a dearth of such introspection by those who make decisions that may harm Christians. I hope that this work will encourage such critical thinking among those with Christianophobia and perhaps help some to confront a bigotry they do not realize they possess. Before I read the rest of this article, let me remind you guys that live in America, the founding fathers fought for you to discriminate. It's true. You are a grown man or woman. You can choose your own friends for yourself. You don't need people telling you how to run your life. That's what real freedom and equality is, man. If you want equality, then you need to respect other people's beliefs. We all have, this isn't a democracy, by the way. This is a republic. There's a big difference because in a republic, you can do this. You have the right to discriminate. In a democracy, if we were living in a democracy, they would have us killed. They would have us persecuted because there would be majority tyranny and there would be no way of you know what I mean? There would be no way of having this having like a deliberate type of slow man, it's really hard to express, like to describe, because you got to know what separation of powers and consent of the governed is. Because during the Federalists, during the time where Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay were writing as Publius about the Federalist Papers, it was because people of majority groups were going around. You know what I mean? They didn't want majority groups to start. You know what I mean? Becoming tyrants to the rest of the people. That had a lot to do with that. It also had a lot to do with the people that were lending, that were getting ripped off by people who were getting the loans and whatnot. But there's a lot that goes into that. Anyways, CP, sociologist Peter Berger famously remarked that if Sweden is the most secular country and India is the most religious country, America has become a nation of Indians ruled by Swedes. At a Faith Angle Forum talk, he added many of the problems of America have to do with the fact that the Indians have become increasingly pissed off at the Swedes. In some ways, your book seems to present a correlate to that. The Swedes have become increasingly pissed off at the Indians. Do you agree? Yancey, I think that is a great way to think about it. I would put it this way. Because of their numbers, the Indians historically had a lot of political and cultural power in our society. They may not be in the elite political positions, but the Swedes in those positions cannot afford to ignore what they wanted. The Swedes for years documented the excesses and biases of the Indians. Over time, they began to look down on the Indians, but they also gained educational and cultural power and began to ignore the concerns of the Indians. But the Swedes never considered that many of the social processes that produce bigotries in the Indians also can produce bigotries in themselves. They became quite adept at seeing social dysfunctions in the Indians, but not in themselves. While part of the reason for this book is to provide some insight to protect the Indians, I also see it useful for helping the Swedes engage in the introspection they need to deal with their own failings and to live by their own stated values. Amen. God bless you guys and have a good day. Something to think about, man.